I'm actually more a business person than a designer now. In these past 5 years, I have built a 7-figure business and I have not touched Figma, which is the tool that we use for design. I want to grow businesses. I want to grow companies. I want to be that CEO. Creatives that call themselves creative entrepreneurs, when they start running a business, they understand they're not businessmen or women. They say, I can't do this. It's not in my nature. I'm a creative. I do want to make more money so I can hire a few freelancers and work with them, but they will never grow to become a company unless.
Today's guest is someone every creative entrepreneur needs to hear from. Sagi Shrieber began his journey as a designer, working for global giants like Fiverr, where he was the first design hire. But Sagi didn't stop there. He took everything he learned about creativity, leadership, and growth and built his own 7-figure business from the ground up. Sagi's story isn't just inspiring, it's practical. He's walked the same path many of you are on and knows what it takes to succeed. So in this episode, you're going to learn the mindset shift that took Sagi from being a salary designer to running a 7-figure creative business. You're going to learn how to discover your unique strength while tackling the areas you need to grow in to scale your business, even when your business feels stuck or your industry is in chaos. So whether you're a designer, creator, or any entrepreneur looking to break through, this episode is packed with the insights you need to take your business and yourself to the next level. Get ready for a step-by-step breakdown of how Sagi Shrieber transformed his creative passion into a thriving 7-figure business and how you can do it too. But before we dive in, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any future episodes. Now, let's get started with this week's episode of The Tipping Point of Success. All right, Sagi, I want to ask you, how do you define a creative entrepreneur? And what's the difference between that and the linear entrepreneur?
All right, cool. So thank you for having me on. That's kind of like my theory. There's like two types of entrepreneurs. There's the creative entrepreneur and the linear entrepreneur. So if we're looking at the creative entrepreneur, which is us, right? We tend to
Sure.
be, right, like juggling a lot of balls at once in the air. And we used to grow up when people say, you're all over the place, get your stuff together, right? Um, and that's how we kind of grew up. And nowadays in business, we usually bring that same thing to the business because we juggle a lot of things at once, and that's what we do. And the linear entrepreneur is a person who cannot even think about having a couple balls at once, juggling at once. Usually they have a very straightforward business and they will build that business very thoroughly and only then will move on to the next thing. It doesn't mean that they don't have a family raising, that they're not raising a family while they're doing that or anything like that. But they tend to also like do things in periods. Like, so they will raise their family, then they'll have the business. Or they'll have the business, then they'll create a family. And so on. You'll see a lot of those patterns repeating with linear entrepreneurs. There are amazing business people. They are amazing, really focusing on one thing. And we all know that when you focus on one thing, you basically grow that thing. Unfortunately for us, creative entrepreneurs, it's not the same way. And the thing that I found out just, I think it was like a year or 2 years ago, is like, it's just the way we're wired. Um, it's not about trying to focus, because I got so many mentors throughout my career, like saying, Sagi, you got to focus. Sagi, and especially like in the past 7 to 8 years, I have worked with so many coaches and multimillionaires that some of them were linear entrepreneurs, and I didn't catch it at the time, but they were like, Sagi, you can't do all those things that you're doing. You got to focus. And to tell you the truth, like, I know focus brings results, obviously, and you cannot juggle too many balls at once. But as creative entrepreneurs, what I found out is, for me at least, that's very personally for me, I cannot be happy without juggling a few things at once. I just can't. So that's my nature, and therefore I embrace that nature, and I don't want to be someone I'm not. And I don't know if anybody connects to this over here, but creative entrepreneurs, I think we are more connected to what God gave us, which is the power of creation. In Hebrew, we have the word bria, which is kind of the combination of the word creation and birth, right? It's a combination of those two words. And that's exactly what we are. We have that very strong power within us to create, to livro, do those things, bring it out in the world, speak it to existence, and make things happen. And once we embrace that and we embrace our creativity, that becomes our leverage in the marketplace. And that's what I strongly believe. It means all the way from the businesses that we build and up until just very small business solutions, or even like, getting out of complex situations in the business with our creativity. And so we're really good at that, and therefore we can embrace it. Now that's where creative entrepreneurs and linear entrepreneurs kind of, here's the mix. Number one, creativity versus linear is the vision versus plan. Yes, a plan is a more linear thing. A vision and dreaming is a more creative thing. Both sides of the barren, right? And also, if you're looking at how Disney operated for such a long time, they actually had this methodology of like, first of all, we get into a workshop where we only dream. We don't even think about what's possible. We only dream. Then we make the Photoshop, the workshop of planning. So that's how they worked, right? And so it's the same kind of thing. That's how it works. Now, when you, as a creative entrepreneur, you get into more clarity cycles than linear entrepreneurs. And we have to understand that. So we are stuck in the what do I want to do when I grow up thing, um, way more than linear entrepreneurs that, they're just working towards a business, right? And we're like, all the opportunities are open for us. The creativity is everywhere. We can build anything like in our mind, and our mind is so rich, and it's like a blooming garden of like ideas and sparkles. And the thing is like, which flower should I pick? Right? It's in a garden, like it's a huge thing. And so it's hard for us sometimes to gain clarity. So we have tricks about that. We can talk about it, but basically it's like, we have to understand we fall into clarity cycles more often than the other type of entrepreneurs, and it's okay. Like, all we have to do then is recalibrate, go back to taking a day off of going to an inspiring place and writing your vision down, and maybe you should do it a couple of times, but then you gain clarity.
Nice. But let me ask you this: as a creative that started as being Fiverr's first design hire, transitioning to managing a design team in your own business. So what made you do that shift? And what was the most challenging part about shifting into a more structured managerial role?
Well, first of all, good question. I guess it wasn't managerial as much as it's so we're talking about like Fiverr was 2011, and now it's end of 2024. Um, I launched Contrast, my agency, when it was the beginning of 2020, like just before COVID. Um, and and so what happened was, number one, I came from the tech industry and I had a very successful career, and I had a very popular blog in Israel called Pixel Perfect, and then I also launched another international blog and podcast where I interviewed VPs and directors of designs from companies like Airbnb and Apple and all that stuff. So I always had my side hustles, creative entrepreneur again, right? But I also had like the career path of like, I was the first designer at Fiverr. Then I joined a startup with a couple of friends. We got accepted to this accelerator in Silicon Valley, came back, acquired by SimilarWeb. In SimilarWeb, became the lead designer, then became design director. I hired the entire design team. I created like the design system and design team and all the entire UX processes of SimilarWeb in its growth
So it
days.
was a journey.
So
So it wasn't a one day thing. It
yeah,
was a
so it was
process
a
that
process,
took you
but
there.
all along this process, again, it's like the typical career path. And it's funny, like, some people say, no, it's not a typical career path, Sagi, like you had a startup and you're like, all these companies, but it's not. Like, we all get to experience like a career path that grows and builds momentum, and it's great. But one day, I just, I decided to leave SimilarWeb back then to work on my blog. And I said, this is it. I am an entrepreneur by heart. I must follow that passion, and I want to be my kind of like the entrepreneur that I was meant to be.
So you always had an urge to do your own thing,
Yeah, exactly.
express yourself in your own unique way.
Yep. Yeah.
So how do you develop the management skills needed to be in that role?
Wow. One of the things about developing business skills is it's kind of like you at the beginning, you think you're like, oh, I just need to know how to manage my finances and everything will be okay. And then you
Yeah.
understand it's like, holy shit, that's a whole other profession. And most creative people, we come out of like our profession as something, right? You come with a background of music. I come with a background of design. And like we come with our creative backgrounds, which we're such amazing people at, like we're amazing and professional at. And people like tend to also treat us that way. They're like, you shine when you do, user experience. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I also grew a seven-figure business. When I look at it that way, you learn new skills once you just throw out the work, and you have to understand that these are skills that you should um, acquire and fast. And there's many of them, which number one, it's a bit scary and overwhelming. But on the other hand, if you gain those skills, you can take your creativity and now see yourself as an octopus with many arms that can now do multiple things, and kind of like bring more service to the world, meaning get yourself more wealth.
Coming up next, Sagi opens up about the biggest wall he hit as an entrepreneur and a single life-changing decision that helped him turn everything around. If you've ever felt stuck, this is the moment you don't want to miss. And if you've ever faced a challenge like this, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Let's make this a space where we all grow and learn together.
The first time I really kind of hit that wall, I guess, or like I got that slap in the face. You're an entrepreneur now. Was after I already left SimilarWeb and I was working on my blog, and we ran out of cash. And my partner and I are like, I remember it was like a day where my partner comes up to me and he's like, Sagi, we don't have like money coming in this month, so I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, we don't have, we, we got to pay this and we got to pay that. And, we have these expenses so, and, and I was like, I was even letting my partner, handle the finances. And like, what kind of entrepreneur is that? Right. Like, and so, and I thought we were all good, but we weren't. And so we got into a period of 6 months where we didn't pull a dime from our own company. And I was already father of two, and it was very hard to make ends meet. I took a loan. I wasted the entire loan in 3 months. Um, I got into an overdraft in the bank that I was never in such an overdraft in my life. Like the numbers were so big, it was like above my salary. Um, and then I remember, and that's like the moment where it hit me. I was like, I was outside, like walking my dog at night. It was May. Weather was beautiful. And I was like troubled and stressed and running equations through my head is like, how can I monetize? How can I monetize? And in 2 weeks, the credit cards are due, and I'm such in an overdraft and in such debt right now that like I don't even know if if the credit card or the bank would let me, you know, pay for my kids' food, right, in 2 weeks. So, um, and then I just broke down and started crying. I was like, it was the first time it hit me. It's like, that's it. You're rock bottom, dead end, a wall in front of your face, and a smack in the face. And
Your dream is
dream
over.
is over.
You,
I felt like a letdown for my family. I felt like a letdown for my partner. I felt like a letdown for the community of our blog and podcast. And I felt like a letdown for myself in this world. And I was all alone. Like it wasn't just me. Like nobody's got you when you're down. It's only you. It was the first time it hit me, and then um, so after a few minutes, crying there like a grown adult, I was like, okay, okay, okay. What? So like I caught myself. I remember this saying to myself like, Sagi, what the f are you going to do about it? And that's when I decided right then and there that I'm going to reach out to people that I know that can maybe help me and coach me. Um, I didn't really decide on coaching at the time, but that's what happened. I ended up reaching out to this guy that I read his book back then, and he inspired me. And I reached out to him on Messenger, someone from the United States. I was in Israel, um, and he answered me and on Messenger. And he said, "Look, man, the situation you're describing is like, we can have a chat or whatever, but I can also just coach you and help you." I was like, "Okay, fine." At the end of the like process, I ended up flying him over to Israel with thousands of dollars I didn't have. I was already in debt. I didn't know how I'm gonna pay anything. Like I was like, oh, I'm so deep in debt that I just like a couple $1,000, wouldn't really, matter now. So, and I flew him over, um, to Israel.
What's the story? What do you say to yourself in that moment when you decide to do that? What's running through your head? I'm flying this guy over. Why?
I knew it was my last chance to, because what were my options? I mean, I could go on and try to find a job and go back to being an employee. And I knew I just couldn't handle that. It wasn't in my nature. I just couldn't handle that. It would mean giving up on my dreams and paying out the debt as an employee. Like, how much could I earn that I could now like pay out a tremendous amount of debt? Meaning, like, I would also pay debt and be an employee for like years and years. I didn't want that. It was my dream. I said, this is my last chance of making it as an entrepreneur in a way. And so I ended up just understanding that's my only chance, and I flew him over. Uh,
What made you confident about taking that
I
risk,
wasn't.
that leap of faith?
I wasn't. Um, we can get into the story of like the relationship I had with him was like first time he's directly offered to coach me and said no, because family members of mine told me like, and like friends, they told me like, no, you can do it on your own. Don't worry. Like all you need to do is like monetize, whatever. Like, and I said, I said to him, no. And then he asked for a lot of money. And I was like, he also told me next time you're going to reach out, probably my process will double. He told me that. And then, I reached out again, and prices were double, and it was after a few months, and then I flew him out. So it wasn't like the first time I met him back then. It was like the second time I reached out to him, um,
Mm.
and I actually really just expected him to get on an hour call with me and help me out. I didn't expect him to say, I can coach you, now you pay me. Like, I expected for him to just mentor me for like an hour for free and give me some advice. And when he said like, look, man, I can help you and we can chat, but I can actually coach you, how about you take my offer? And that's when at that time I said no once. That was a mistake. Um, and the thing about it is the mistake came from rational decision making. My gut feeling when I talked to him for the first time was get him over here now, start working with this guy. But so the intuition, the gut feeling was that, but I wasn't ruthless with my gut feeling. I toned it down and I followed the logic and what people told me. And I said, no, this time I followed my guts ruthlessly. And I said, okay, even if it doesn't make sense rationally, on paper, it's the worst decision ever. Fly someone you don't know from the United States with thousands of dollars you don't have. What are the chances that he will help you if you haven't got, if you haven't made it up until now? What possible like advice can he give you that you haven't even thought of yourself? Come on. Um, so that decision changed my life because when I flew him over, and we sat down in an office in Tel Aviv. I was still not believing. I was actually sitting on the table in this like meeting room that I hired for like an hour. I was like this. I was like, what have I done? And then and and this guy, his name is Calvin Wayman. He was walking around the table. He's a big shot on YouTube right now, by the way. Like amazing. He's such an amazing friend. We're really good friends now. And so back then he was like walking around the table, and it was just like, I'm just like grabbing my head and he's like, okay, Sagi, what's your vision? And I'm like, what's a vision? You know? So I'm like, okay. He said, all right, let's do this, take it from the top. Then he made me meditate for like 10 minutes. And he said, and
Wow.
visualize my 10-year-old older self. And we just had a guided meditation where I measure myself like in 10 years. It's first time in my life I've ever done this. Like, I don't know how many of you listening to the show have done it, but uh, first time I had to imagine myself in 10 years from now. And then it was hard for me, by the way, to visualize myself. And then we went to now doing the 2-year vision. So he says like, okay, so you got the 10-year down. Where do you need to be in 2 years that can get you closer to that you're on the path to the 10-year vision, or the 10-year you, right? And the 10-year was vague, but the 2-year got a bit more specific. I already knew kind of how much I want to make and how much like where I live and what I have going on. And he says, like, okay, great. So now where do you want to be in like 6 months in order to get to your 2-year vision, right? So what's your 6-month vision? And that's already goals. That's already like 6-month goals, right? And he said they have to be smart, meaning like specific. I don't remember really the terms of a smart goal, right? But accurate,
Yeah.
whatever, timely, whatever it is. But basically, it means they're bound to time,
Achievable,
achievable. Yeah. So exactly. And he said,
realistic.
yeah, so there's a couple of things about that. If any of you on the show want to do it, and by the way, I can share a free video like I created about how to create it, and also share the template of what I use to run my own vision stuff.
Thank you. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so I can definitely share. We can put it in the show notes. And if you know what, we'll do even better. If anybody wants that, uh, find me on Instagram at Sagi.Shrieber and send me a message vision, and I'll send it to you. All right, so we'll do it like that. Um,
Thank you.
and so uh, basically r- making sure that I have my 6-month vision, but then that these things, obviously 6 months make it timely, meaning we're bound to time, right? Great. Second thing is, he said, don't think realistic, think achievable. There's two different things between the realistic is what most people would say you should do, right? And it's bound by the people that are around you, their expectations of you, and your own like limiting beliefs. Realistic sucks. It doesn't drive you out of your seat in the morning, right? So that's realistic. He said, what's achievable is greater than that because mankind can do it. Meaning, like, it's not far fetched. You couldn't say, tomorrow I want to wake up as a tiger. That's not something achievable, right? And you can't say, tomorrow I want to be an astronaut. That's also not achievable. Like, maybe you can aim to be an astronaut in 10 years, but not, like, whatever it is. Probably by the time of AI, it will be in a day. But so, anyways, it must be achievable, time bound, and specific, very accurate. Meaning, very accurate is a simple, if I ask you in 6 months, yes or no, did you get it done? You can answer me like by yes or no question. Like, Sagi, this item that you wrote over here, achieved? Yes or no? It's a very simple question. It's not, oh, maybe I got close. No, yes or no. And so the things that I wrote down, oh, and one more important thing, this is what I do with, I did it back then, and it's now what sometimes I do with people. I help out and kind of help them craft their vision. I ask them, what from your 2-year vision can you move to your 6-month vision and achieve in 6 months? That's a crazy thought, right?
Like 4xing the time it's going to take you.
Yeah. And there are
Mhm.
things that people write in their 2-year vision so many times. It's like, I haven't even seen one person that hasn't moved at least one item from the 2-year to 6 month. And I'll tell you what's even crazier. The people that are now in the 6-month vision, some of the things you can start tomorrow. I am big on coaching, meaning like since I brought this like Calvin to help me out and he helped me build a vision, and it took 6 months, but I achieved like everything I wrote down on 6 months, like, and
Wow.
even more than, I don't know if you know Pat Flynn or JLD, like two amazing podcasters from the United States. On my vision,
Uh-huh.
I wrote down, I'm going to be interviewed on one of the biggest podcasts, like, and I wrote in parentheses, Pat Flynn, JLD.
Yeah, and I've listened to that
Yeah.
podcast
So,
as well.
so like 6 months or it was like 7 months. And then I met both of them in the same room. Like things just
Wow.
happened. I manifested things that I wouldn't even believed are possible for me. My 6-month vision for my finances happened in a month. I wouldn't have even thought it would be possible. Like, right. And so for me, when I understood that this is a thing, like I can get a coach or, someone to show me what I didn't know that I didn't know and get such achievements, I just I got coaching ever since. I have been in coaching groups, in
Do you
one-to-one
think
coaching.
it's what you learned from him, or is it the accountability? I mean,
It's sometimes
what was more
look,
influential on you achieving those goals?
once we understand we want to evolve as humans and productivity is a thing, we understand that we're out there to conquer islands. That's what we are. And we're on a boat in the ocean. And in that boat, we just definitely have number one, the boat, which is just a practical tool. It's already there. And in that boat, there's the mechanism. There's, and we have to take care of the boat and make sure the boat that, continues to move thoroughly. We can equivalent that to our bodies, right? And we also understand that the island is far away and we cannot see it now. Meaning, we're using are made up, a kind of a map that we can say from other people's experiences, or where we can just guess it will be there, that island that we're shooting for, and we know we have a long journey until we reach that island. For instance, you're an entrepreneur, you want to build a 7-figure business and whatever. Like, it's an island so far away, you cannot even fathom to see it. You don't even know if you'll travel for like 6 months and you'll actually see that, that you're on the right path. You wouldn't even know. You just have to start, right? And you have to set that path and that direction by following your inner compass. That's your gut feeling, and that's your heart, and that's how you create the vision in the first place. And my business is called Mindful and Ruthless just because of that. And like, ruthless with our gut feeling, and mindful of how we do things, and therefore you get that direction, that azimuth as we call it, right? And you just start sailing. And when you sail, you have to understand that you're in the middle of the ocean. It's scary. It's nature, right? And nature has its forces, meaning there's going to be storms, and there's going to be like other things that will come by. You just have to understand that it's just nature. That's also the nature of business. You'll have storms, and you'll have clarity cycles where you just start whirling around, like, and different things in the ocean are going to, little, uh, pirate boats are going to try to attack you, and like, this is what it is. It is what it is. And then, if we're looking at what happens, how do you understand that you're on the right path? There's a couple of ways of understanding that. Number one is, along the journey with your boat in the ocean, you're going to find other explorers that, maybe have come from where you just want to go, and they can maybe say, yeah, yes, you're in the right direction. Or maybe they can say, look, don't take that route, take this route. Like, you're going to find people, like, and those are going to become your colleagues, your allies.
Like a peer, like a
Yeah.
community.
Right. And those are
Mhm.
your friends. I find these friends in masterminds. Like, I join masterminds and coaching groups, and I find amazing people like me that are, and some of them have already been in some of the places that I want to be, and some have not. And so, and you gain that shared information, that mutual information together. And so that's masterminds. The second thing is, you also have hacks of reaching out to people that have already been exactly in the island that you want to be in, and you want to find them. You can find them either like they already achieved like multiple islands exactly like you have, therefore they can tell you, hey, in order to reach any island like that, you have to do this, this, and this. But they're like birds from above that can kind of guide you, right? They're like, take a bit right, take a bit left. You're on the right path, don't worry. Or you're completely not on the right path, reopen your map. Let's open your map for a second. So it's like a joker card. It's like they can become birds in the sky and get back to you on the boat when needed, to give you accountability and to open the map with you and to replan and to go back up and to look, and therefore, like, coaches are super valuable in one-on-one. Um, and the thing that you have to also understand, it's kind of like you have your family with you on this boat, basically, a lot of the time. So that's another thing to remember, taking care of the safety while you're, also taking care of yours. And so, you got to make sure, if you get into a storm, you got to take care of them, and you got to make sure, you mitigate the risk as much as you can. So this is
Got
how I
it.
look at things. And so that's why coaches are super valuable. That's why masterminds are super valuable. Um, and masterminds, they're coming from either the ones that you join, that someone is leading, which is the coach, or also just gathering group of friends and meeting every couple of months together. Like, I have a couple of those where we meet every quarter and discuss each other's businesses and break it apart.
I can see it. I can see the whole picture. with the coach in front or above, with being surrounded by the community and taking care of yourself and your family as you go along. That sounds like the perfect formula. In the next part, Sagi dives straight into the practical steps. He's sharing the exact process for hiring creative talent to grow your business without compromising your artistic vision, and the mindset shift that helped him go from a struggling designer to running a 7-figure business. If you're enjoying this content, give it a thumbs up. It helps me understand what kind of topics you love and allow me to bring you even more insights like this. Let's start being tactical. Are you ready? Let's start firing it
Sure.
up. All right, so we're going to answer the questions that creative entrepreneurs frequently ask on the internet. First one is that a lot of creative entrepreneurs in that stage, developing, growing their businesses, have fears when it comes to hiring freelancers or outsourcing. But I think, like creative entrepreneurs have it even it's amplified, because we're so like dreading, our work.
Yeah.
So how did you go about finding the right people you felt you can trust?
Great question. I think in regards to finding the right people, it's just what's called like a talent acquisition in a process of a business, right? So at the beginning, you're gonna have some bad hires, and you're always gonna have bad hires here and there. But I would say, number one, understand. It's kind of like you talked about two things. One is the kind of like the limiting belief, or maybe you're pushing back in your mind to hire anybody to do your own work that you're really good at, right? So you have that pushback. You need to understand that in order to build a business, you need to hire people, and need to get into a mindset of like saying, well, I need to hire people that are doing this better than me. Yeah.
But can you share a framework of how to find a trustworthy freelancer?
When you want to hire, number one, make a list of what you want to hire for. It's like the areas of responsibilities, right? It needs to be very, very clear. What do you want to hire this person for? The second thing is, what do you wish to, what are your values, right? Because you got to write down your values. What do you value? And what can't you stand even like? So there's the things that you value and things that you cannot stand. Meaning like, for instance, I cannot deal with woke mentality, right? That's something I can't, it's not me. Like I'm anti-woke, you know. And so anybody who's like woke or, extra, um, let's say political or extra even feminist or extra like, like extreme to one side of something, I would not hire them. I just, our belief system don't match, right? Um, I'm not political. I'm not left or right. I'm about women's rights and I have $2, but I'm not, if wouldn't go with feminists like ever, like, and
Yeah, me neither.
right. And so if you understand your values and you write those down, that's what you look for in an interview as well. And you're like, hey, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your life. Like, and then another thing is to ask them like, about the responsibilities and understand they have expertise in, because not just saying, yeah, I can be a designer. Right. But have you actually done any user testings before? Or have you ever run a design system? And can you explain to me how? And so you have to kind of understand like what the skills that you want, if they actually have experience in, right? Number one, I have to understand every business has what's called a customer acquisition process and a talent acquisition process. People treat like, oh, I need to get clients. No, you also need to get talent. Like those are two different separate like routes that you need to work on, besides many others as a business owner. But you have to have an active talent acquisition funnel, an active talent acquisition funnel, and I have that. So I have people.
Can you
Yeah,
describe that funnel? How,
yeah,
how does it look
sure.
like?
For me, it's like a job ad. The job ad is running all the time. I pay monthly to have that job ad running. I experimented with a couple of resources to run that job ad. I found one that is working, but way better than all the others. Um, the people are applying, and the job ad is actually connected to a form, a Monday form. We work with Monday. You can work with whatever you want. I used to work with Google Forms, and now it's a Monday form, but it's a Monday form. They go out and fill in the form. In the form, the questions are already there, like some things that we can identify that we learned with time, meaning there's a question about it's a question about like if you get accepted, can you start immediately or do you have to give 30 days notice? Because we already had that experience where we hired someone and it was like, and the client wants to start, next week, but now the person needs to give a 30 days. So we have a lot of things, and we also ask about their expectations. Like, let's say we hire you, what are your reasonable expectations for, like, for work? And so we already asked about their expectations in the form. And then after they fill out everything and we asked about everything that is like kind of like top line important for us, that brings them into Monday. And in Monday, we have a very specific process. They get into applied, but the status applied, it's a group of everybody who's applied. Now we start filtering them. My design director, he goes in and he filters them basically by either country, because sometimes we know some countries we don't work with. So, okay, Eastern Europe, there's amazing talents. Great. Once they're in Eastern Europe, then they look at the portfolio. Anyways, whenever someone is now, after applied, move on to the next phase of an interview, we have this thing, we just a drop down, we change the status to, ready for interview. That moves on to another group inside that Monday form. Interview is set, great, and everything with automations and everything. Once we just check that box, like ready for interview, an automatic email is sent. Kind of like, even it looks personal for me, that says, hey, thank you, we would love to have you as an interview with a link to the Calendly, please book here. And so just a link to the Calendly, and they book the interview. And once they book the interview, we get them on their interview and we get the entire process done with a home assignment and everything like that. And if they are accepted, and we communicate to them if we have something active right now that's in the pipeline, or uh, if not, we also communicate it early. Like, look, we're interviewing you, but we don't have something specific, just to get in the pool that we can, call you when we got a client that matches.
We need it.
Yeah. And our goal, which we never actually hit, which is, for me, it's like, I want to hit that goal, but I want to be actively on 10 designers in my pool at any given time that are vetted and have passed the home assignment and passed everything. We haven't got there yet because, again, we don't have someone just sitting on interviews all day. We do it while we're doing the rest of our delivery job. But it is a process, and we do have a pool going on, and we have that talent acquisition process. And every time we need to hire someone different, we just get, we post a different job ad.
Where do you post it?
For me, as a designer, I posted on Dribbble. Dribbble is a platform for designers. Feel free to copy my talent acquisition process and enjoy.
That's great. You know why? Because I think a lot of people are scared of that of being there because they don't have the process. When once you do have the process, like you just shared, now I see it. Now, okay, it's easier. I have steps. I just have to follow the steps.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, Sagi.
Sure.
That was amazing. What advice do you have for creatives that feel like they're losing touch after they hire their first hires, or maybe even it's a process of gradually feeling like you're losing the touch of your craft when you delegate or you outsource your craft to other people and you spend more time doing the strategic work and then managing the business. What's your advice?
Look, it's hard for me to give advice because I can also talk about what's personal for me. Not everybody is an entrepreneur and business owner by heart, and most designers, most creatives that call themselves creative entrepreneurs, when they start running a business, they understand they're not businessmen or women. They just understand it's not they say, I can't do this. It's not in my nature. I'm a creative. I do want to make more money so I can hire a few freelancers and work with them. But they will never grow to become a company. And I can say, in my case, I am actually more a business person than a designer now. In these past 5 years, I have built a 7-figure business and I have not touched Figma which is the tool that we use for design. And I don't want to, and I will never, or I shouldn't say will never, but basically I don't want to ever go back to touching Figma again. I want to grow businesses. I want to grow companies. I want to be that CEO. That's what I'm growing now. That's me.
But you still have a you don't want to touch the software, I can understand, but you still have a creative vision. So as the business expands, how you ensure the quality and attention to details that define you as a designer,
Yeah.
and how do you remain, how do you sustain that
Hmm.
when the business grows? You still have the integrity to provide the your standard of execution.
Good question, but it's always possible. So for me, I can say that, yeah, there were times in the growth of the business that we fell from our delivery standards of like what I would sign off of. But then I hired one manager about 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago. She was amazing. But she comes from a different background though, not proper design, but like user experience, right? And so she wasn't an art director. And then like recently I hired also an art director who's like an A player. Um, and I would say like the art director comes with as much years of experience as I have. Um,
Mm,
and just when I thought, and that was also a limiting belief that, oh, I would never find someone with my level of experience. Like all of them are in amazing companies with amazing salaries. They would want to work, with me like a small business. Um, but when I was open to that opportunity, sometimes when we become open to something and we say, well, let's just think he's out there. Someone's out there. He or she is out there, we'll find them. Opportunities just find themselves in your lap. And that's when I got a call from a very good, like a good friend of mine, that we met like over 10 years ago. And he was a super savvy design director. He was a design director of the Israeli Uber, like it's called Get Taxi. He was design director there. He was head of a division in Wix. He was a design director at other companies, just really savvy in like design and direction. And he was just like, hey, we just moved to Thailand, looking for my new thing. I left my job. I want something remote, something that I can, combine with my lifestyle. I'm like, hey, let's talk. And I ended up hiring him. And, the only reason I could afford him is because Thailand is a cheaper living. So he can also
right.
afford it for himself. And so, yeah,
It aligned.
it aligned perfectly. Stars
It
aligned.
aligned at the moment that you were open for that.
Yeah, exactly.
But let me ask you another question, a follow-up question to
Mhm.
that. Like, how do you create a team that understands the creative DNA and support your creative vision without restricting their own creativity?
Frameworks. So tactically, it's frameworks. I- but besides the frameworks that you can build for yourself, there's also the vision that you explain and communicate to them. You have to always communicate your vision as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, to your team. Always communicate the vision. Always also ask them what their vision is. It's something else that we also ask in the interviews, by the way. It's like, what's your vision? Where do you want to be in like 5 years? Like we ask them this question because we want to make sure they align, that we help them get to their vision. A business only becomes successful once you help your team members get to their visions. Um, Not thinking only about yours, but and making sure it's aligned and helping them reach theirs while they're helping you and they know they're helping you reach yours. And so um, that's when a great team is aligned, and you communicate the vision. But making sure to enforce that they work with the proper like ways that you work, you have to think and create frameworks for how you worked. What made you great? When a client would come to you, what process would you do? How do you break it down to 1, 2, 3 steps? Step number one, I do this. Step number two, I do this. Step number three, ask him the question this. Step number four, and then after that, give it a name, like uh, the Letterman framework, the Letterman framework, or whatever it is. You can do whatever you want and just give it a name. And once you give it a name, that's what you teach to anybody you onboard to your company. Any new, freelancer or employee that you bring onto your company is now onboarded with proper video trainings on the Letterman framework. And now they know how to work with your clients. And next time they come to you with a question, they're like, my client said, I didn't do a good job here. and I need to understand how can I fix it. Then you can see, okay, let's get on a Zoom call, share your screen, and show me how you ran through the Ledamar framework. And now they will show you, and you're like, oh, you see, in that step, you got it completely wrong. We do X, not Y. That's where you messed up. Let's go back. All right. So, and then you got to train them on the frameworks all the time as well. So we have a weekly call with the agency where everybody's like getting on Zoom, and I train them. I keep training them on the same 2 frameworks that we have. We keep doing another training and training how to do it like in this situation. And then how do we do it with that use case and that use case? And this part of the framework, is not clear to you guys. I see you guys coming in the recent weeks with bugs in this, part. So let's train on that this week. And that's how we do it.
I totally got it, and it's amazing. But let me take you back for a second to what I ask, because it's really important for me to understand that. Because they are creatives.
Yeah.
They want to create, like
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
They want to work for you.
Yeah.
They want to be a part of the team. They need the money, but they still have this edge. They want to do something of their own. They want to express themselves. I don't know if it's something of their own, just to express
That's the
themselves.
vision.
How do you balance that? You have the framework. This is what you do. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's very linear sounding. But I have to share a little story. I was in the band at Tikva 6, Tikva 6, very
Yeah.
successful band
Yeah.
in Israel.
Yeah.
Bass player. When I started there, I started with the band because I loved the people, and it just sounded great to me. But hey, I was a rock guy. They were playing reggae.
Mhm.
I didn't even understand that music. And in order to fit in, I asked the singer who writes all the songs. I mean, what should I do? How to play? And he showed me. He actually really showed me how to play my bass. Even he wasn't a bass player.
Yeah.
How to play a reggae bass, and I did that for a while. And then I had the urge of starting, of wanting to do stuff of my own, but it didn't fit his framework.
Mhm.
And as time went by, I started to feel more and more and more constrained to his way of doing things
Mhm.
until I couldn't take it anymore and I left.
Okay.
So, do you think he could have done it better to preserve me in the
Yeah.
band, let me do my own thing while I'm serving the big picture?
Yeah. When he hired you, or when you were in the first discussions together, I don't know, drinking coffee or whatever, he could have asked you, "Do we have this? We do reggae. Do you do reggae?" And you would have said no, and you both would continue as friends, and that's it. You wouldn't. Sometimes it's that simple. Um,
Wow.
it's that simple. Like, do you do reggae? No. Do you like reggae? No, I don't mind. Okay, but it's not your passion, right? Not really. Okay, bye. Super simple. You could have found.
You said we both wasted 5 years of our lives being
No, I
together
mean,
and
there's a reason
creating
everything
all that
happens.
success.
There's a reason everything happens. But like, you might have said, like, at the beginning, I don't mind reggae, but your framework of playing reggae is something that I just don't really connect to. Um, but for instance, I'm just taking it to our interview process right now. It's
Yeah,
an alignment thing. Like, you could have understood that, and you didn't waste any time. You worked together, and probably you enjoyed your good friends together, and the band became super popular, and now you got that in your resume, and it's amazing. Um, and by the way, when I joined Fiverr, I left not because I didn't I couldn't work with that culture as well. I didn't have an alignment as well. Um,
Mm.
and it's not that it wasted my time. I didn't waste theirs, and it didn't waste mine, because I have this in my resume, and it served me so many times. And they have me as a friend, and they called me up already 3 times in the past 3 years to work with them.
right.
Yeah, so
So it goes back to finding the right fit, someone who will ultimately be able to feel like he's expressing himself within your framework, within the framework
yeah.
that is going to be
And you
given.
can say, I have a
That makes
framework.
sense.
This is how we work. You got to understand that if you work
Yep.
with us, this is the framework in which you work at. I'm completely open to you challenging this framework because, by the way, I am open. If my designers come to me and say, "Sagi, your framework is a piece of crap," like you know, I would say, "Fine. What do you suggest? What
Show me a
framework should we
different
use?"
way. Show me
But
another
no
way.
matter what, I do not want to guess any part of my delivery. I want everything to be process oriented and documented. And the framework is the IP, so it gives even a more deeper meaning. If my framework doesn't work, show me where, and I will take that part out. I will change it. I will do whatever it takes. So, any of my employees, any of my designers are welcome to always challenge me and make me change the framework. I would love that. I would love to become better. So but at the end of the day, there's only, for instance, like in reggae, there's probably only like one great way of playing reggae and not another. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know guitar or anything.
Not one, but not many.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. I mean, so there's like, so that's exactly it. So sometimes you have to do things in a specific way. Um, and by the way, if my designers would have said, Sagi, look, I know we're doing like this and that way, right? We have for instance, we do something with sticky notes. Like, I don't want to use sticky notes. I draw on paper. I would say, if your result at the end of the day, the clients love it,
Yeah.
I would be okay with you drawing on paper. Fine.
Up next, Sagi reveals his framework for knowing the right next move in your business. Whether you're in a funk or the entire industry is melting down around you, you won't believe how powerful and how simple this approach is. And if you feel like this episode has already helped you, please share it with someone who you think could benefit. Together, we can help more entrepreneurs find their next step forward. So, yeah, one of the entrepreneur's greatest stress factors, as we both know, is the uncertainty about the next steps in the business. We talked about it before. So, I think for creative entrepreneurs, it can be even greater, having nonstop ideas keep us, keep coming up in our minds. So, what are some of the mindset shifts that helped you stay motivated and clear on your right next steps moving forward in both creative and managerial roles?
There's a couple constant things, in life. It's like change, tax, and that kind of stuff that you're like, yeah, I mean, change is one of those constant things you have to understand. And so I pivoted a couple of times during um, my role, in the business. Crazy times. Like, for instance, like at the end of 2023, I went from an entire Israeli-based team to completely remote. Everybody's like
Hmm.
remote. We were working now in 7 countries. So, so the team is now remote. The pivot, right? Like, you have to find the pivots and what makes you like accustom yourself to the market. And when you have all these opportunities, you have to fall back on um, your good anchors, right? Or your like kind of understand like, okay, what's my 10-year vision? Like, what's my 10-year vision? Has it changed? I know the market is in a funk. It's really bad right now, like financially. But has my vision changed? Maybe it did. It's completely. You have the right to change your North Star at any given time. No problem. You have that right. But has it changed? If not, great. Okay. Now, 2-year vision. Has that changed now because of the market shift? Or has that changed for you? No? Okay. 6 months. Has that changed? So once you kind of check yourself on this framework, you can make sure that you're always aligned. And rough times will come and stress will be there. That's the nature of doing business. Alex Hormozy talks about it. It's like, if you want to be a business person, just understand that stress is part of the equation. Stress is actually good in a way. It builds, like, stress is what diamonds are made out of. Like, and you have to understand constant stress is always going to be there because once you're in a funk, great. Now after a funk, what do you experience? Growth. Great. So you're gonna experience it like stress. Growth is stress. Setbacks are stress. That's business. It's never stagnant, and therefore we need to understand how to deal with stress. That goes back to like the 9 to 12 club. That goes back to 75 hard. For me, 75 hard is now like therapy. I'm not kidding. In this time, with everything in flames around me, I really like the market, the war, dealing with so many fronts at once. in my life, for me, taking my feet and going out on a walk in nature, are you kidding me? That's the best thing I can do. It's like within my control. I can do it now if I want to. And I can actually, after this call, I'm actually going for a walk. And um and 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 I can think,
2 hours
right?
of Ito. I need a walk. I
Actually,
need to
this is I
reset.
enjoy the podcast. But yeah, but so make sure that you deal with your stress level. I meditate every day, by the way, now, for the past
Amazing.
117 days.
Wow.
So I keep a meditation practice. I in years I couldn't keep a consistent, but once you build your business, the thing about it, it's not the business that you build, it's you. So I built myself up. Like the 9 to 12 was not there all along. After my second 75 hard, I committed to 45 minutes workouts a day as a mandatory thing for me. After that, at my birthday, I committed to the daily meditations. So I always I'm stacking on top. I'm building this thing, which is Sagi, who's going to be an 8-figure entrepreneur, not a 7-figure entrepreneur. I'm building Sagi to be that person of impact that helps so many other people and can be an inspiration to so many other people. And Sagi will not fail, or not fail. Sorry, Sagi would not fall into the point where, I'm building me to be resilient and to withstand any storm, and to get to an island. And I already know, once I get to one island, I know that there will be another. That's my philosophy. We always will have this next thing. I don't want to ever go to get, retire to pension. I don't want that. I want to keep working and being productive and sharing, and this podcast is one of those things that, I just love being on podcasts. I love doing, making podcasts. I love um, making content. I love sharing things. I want to be of impact for as long as I can in my lifetime. I never want to stop. So
Amazing. So we're thinking about the next steps. You go back to your vision, you
mhm.
go back to your plan,
Yeah,
and when you have a new idea or when you feel the funk, you recheck again and you say, am I still going for
yeah,
it? Am I still going for the same plan, same vision? I can change it. If not, it reminds me where I'm going, and so that helps you keep the track going. And like we said at the beginning, you take care of yourself. You meditate, you work out, you clear your mind. So you reduce the stress, and you also accept the stress.
yeah, 100%.
Okay, positive.
And I, by the way, I created a meditation, a 10-minute meditation, called, we wouldn't share now, but it's basically like, if, again, anybody wants any information on that as well, DM on Instagram or LinkedIn, find me, Sagi Shrieber. It's Sagi.Shrieber, and on Instagram, just find me and send me a DM. I'll send you the meditation. Um, I am just constantly obsessed with how does one build themselves up, right? How do we build ourselves
Mm.
to be who we want to be in the world? And I know that that's like a domino effect on the business. So the business is a business, right? I mean, if you understand you have a dispute with a client, then next time you'll add this whatever thing to the contract, right? So okay, fine, that will happen. It's a natural thing of intelligence. Like, if you're intelligent enough, you'll add it to the contract. um so you learn this, and you learn systems, and you learn so many things while you're building a business. You always have to change and learn new things as well. So it's I know it's next level of my business, I will need to learn new things, and I will experience new stuff and new setbacks and new growth, complexities. And so stress will always be there, but the business will grow to the level that I grow. And the level that I grow, that's interesting, because that's, again, within our control. So if we grow ourselves, we can grow our lives, our businesses, and just at the end of the day, again, be wealthy and healthy and happy. That's the most important thing. Okay, there's one more thing that entrepreneurs can do, creative entrepreneurs can do, and need to understand also, that the success of your business will only reach to the amount of investment in your own personal development and physical and mental fitness. I know that sounds counterintuitive. Some linear entrepreneurs that I know actually are very successful, but they have a huge belly and they're not really successful, and they're not like, in terms of like their physical uh, shape. I don't know about you. I want to be super freaking wealthy, but super fucking healthy. And that's what I would love to, and I just want to be happy, and I think happiness can come without physical well-being and mental well-being. And that's why, number one, like, you have to find time for that. For me, it came to me as it was kind of a slap, and when I had my third daughter, um, and she was just a baby, and I was not sleeping, and we had trouble in the business, and just such a stressful period. And I said, I'm looking at my calendar, and like all my values are reflected in my calendar, and I have time with my kids, I have my work and meetings and stuff, and date night with the wife, but where is my physical and mental fitness? Not in the calendar. So that's why I decided, it was in 2021, I decided I'm blocking out 9 to 12 every day, and I'm not working. And that since then, I managed to build my entire business and actually raised it to 7 figures while not working 9 to 12. And
Wow.
so um,
And and since how long have you been doing that?
almost 4 years. Yeah.
Wow. What's the biggest change that you can testify?
I can say that I think it helps me just be, you know, more present. And it actually came from a realization that I had about this challenge that I did in 2020 called 75 Hard. I'm actually doing this challenge right now, so I can tell what it is in a second. But there's also like videos about it. If you want videos like about it,
75 hard.
yeah,
Got it.
75 Hard. If you want details about it, also reach out on Instagram, and I'll send you all the details. But basically, it's like a challenge invented by Andy Frisella, who was like a very successful entrepreneur. And he said, in this challenge, you do 75. It's a mental toughness challenge, as he calls it. Um, but I see it as like you can bring the things that are within your control and work on what's in your control and your integrity. And that will help the business. And I found that this is now the third time I'm doing it. Every time I did it, it grew my business tremendously. And the thing is, you
Wow.
have to do 2 workouts a day. One, each one 45 minutes, and one has to be outside no matter the weather. And you have to drink a gallon of water every day, which again, like, you pee a lot, just pee all over the place. And you have to read 10 pages of a book every single day that will teach you something new, like a personal development book or business book. And you have to keep a strict diet, no cheat meals or cheat days at all, and you cannot drink alcohol, and you have to take one selfie a day, one progress pic a day. So um, it's an amazing challenge, super hard. And at the beginning, when I did it in 2020, I was like, I'm just going to work at this thing. It's going to take 3 hours a day to work on it. When do I have the time? I don't have the time for this. And what I noticed is, once I started the challenge, and again, by the way, Calvin, the coach that I mentioned back then, he's the one that got me into it. He did it, and I said, I'll join you in the round, and I did as well. And I ended up growing the business, and I was like, I don't understand how this happened. I'm looking back, and I'm like, I worked less, and I gained momentum. How did this happen? And then the second time I did it was when my business was in crisis, complete crisis. I decided, okay, 75 hard. That was in the beginning of 2023. And I said, I'm just doing what I can control, because if I can't control my business collapsing in a way, like
Mm.
working so hard, it just blocks you from getting in the energy of actually building things. Um, and that was, by the way, also, didn't know it back in the time, but that was my problem before I hired Kelvin as a coach. I was working so hard on monetizing, I couldn't monetize. It's counterintuitive to work harder. Just, it's a thing. And so when I opened myself up and I said, no, I'm actually going to walk 2 times a day, or work out in the gym and walk and whatever it is. Um, and I drink a lot, so my body is always hydrated. The mind is just clear, and you make great decisions, and you have energy for another client, potential client on the phone saying no, and another one, and another one. And a friend of mine who's seen me on these calls, he told me, Sagi, I've never seen anyone get on so many calls that everybody's saying to you, no, 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 and you keep going. Another sales call, another sales call, and you're getting, that was a very tough period in the market, as of now, by the way. And I remember we managed to close the clients again and rebuild the business and even to better revenue. So that was in 2023. And now I'm doing it again because again, everything is all over the place. Israel is in war, and like everything is looking just crazy. And the market is crazy, completely crazy. We had to talk about it before we hopped on the podcast, and so
Yeah.
I said to myself, it's a time, and I started 75 hard again. I'm on day 17 now, and I'm, just at least I'm feeling sharp, and my mind is clear, and um, so yeah, so that's 75
Amazing.
hard.
Your mind sure sounds clear, I have to say, and when you said it, it just hit me. It makes so much sense. Where everything's chaotic, when everything's chaotic, and you feel like you have no control, you can't do you have control on certain things,
Yeah.
and you can't do things that are maybe not the usual things you do, but you can do new stuff. You can go outside your box and do things that you can't control, and it gives you back not just the responsibility, but
Power.
yeah, like the agency. I don't know the word. Is it agency?
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
ability to see that you can do stuff, you can create stuff for yourself. You feel better in your body, like you said, and your mind clears up, and
Yeah.
then you see that also you have the ability to influence stuff on the outside. And finally, Sagi shares a formula for a balanced life that completely surprised me. From a dedicated family man like him, I wasn't expecting this, but it's pure gold for anyone striving to balance work and life.
Everything that you as a creative, like you bring to the table, just make sure that you align on what your values are. Hopefully you put yourself first before your family even, and then before your business. So it's like, for me, it's like me first, family second, business third, because most people don't put themselves in front of their families. They're like family first, and that's a wrong thing, because if family first and then business, where are you in this equation? You will only put yourself first if, and again, the calendar is a reflection of your values. So if you have time to put yourself first, that means that's the proof, like, that you're putting yourself out there. You're making time for you. If your children grow up looking at you as a role model, right? Of someone who's taking care of themselves, working out, being fit, and working on meditations and spirituality and faith, and being grateful and practicing gratitude and donating and doing all these things, they will grow to be like you. They don't even have to be educated for that. But if they see a parent who is a bulldozer at business, running over other people, getting angry, snapping at everybody, including probably your children, developing a big ass belly, not because it's your tendency, it's because you don't like eat properly, and you don't work out, and not keeping a healthy diet. All these things, your children will grow up as such. We have to understand that we have to put ourselves first, then our family, because if we don't have us, our family won't have us. And that's the thing that for me is like the most, yeah,
Be an example.
yeah,
Be an
setting an
example. So
example.
if you could have just one piece of advice that you give to creative entrepreneurs struggling with balancing the creativity and the effective management and the work-life balance with the business growing, so it would be that take care of
Yeah, so align your values, make sure you always know what they are, have it written down in priority order, and then making sure that each one of those values have specific experiences mapped on your calendar every single week. Those are your big rocks. The rest is like small rocks and sand. So, but the big rocks, they need to be there, and they're based on your values. And that's how you should also lead your vision and think about where you want to be and who you want to be. Um, and so you can't go wrong with that. That's at least in my philosophy. Like, I don't think I can go wrong with that.
So I always ask this question. It's a traditional question at the end. And the question is, what does reaching the tipping point of success mean to you? I'm not going to explain to you what I thought when I named the podcast.
People are led by wrong philosophies. Once you find the right philosophy, that's the beginning of that's the tipping point. You cannot fail. That's success. Like, and always the tipping point of any success in your life is once you find the right philosophy for it.
How do I find the right philosophy?
Listen to podcasts like this.
Sagi, thank you so much. I
Thank you, Ido.
appreciate your time again
Definitely
and
my
all your
pleasure.
knowledge. If I want to be if anyone wants to be in contact with you, get get your stuff and maybe learn from your wisdom and also maybe be coached by you. Do you do that?
I usually don't. I used to have a mentoring group. Right now, I don't. Maybe when you reach out, I will have again. I don't know. But anyways, feel free to.
What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, the best way to reach again, and I would love for you guys to take a snapshot here and share it on socials and tag us. And feel free to reach out and say you listen to the podcast. I'm at Instagram at Sagi.Shrieber. That's my new account. I had an old account. I restarted Instagram, complete other story. But and then I have Sagi Shrieber on LinkedIn. So I'm most active on LinkedIn and on Instagram right now at the moment. Feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. It means the world to me. And if you're looking for more inspiration, check out these 2 videos. I'm sure they'll help you take the next step in your journey to success. Just click on one and enjoy.